A male employer exploited Louisa May Alcott when she was 18 and poor. Long after Little Women and Success, she recalled her personal. When Louisa May Alcott died, the New York Times duly noted the passing of the highest-paid writer of the era. The author of Little Women did not attempt to do more than she could do well, and her work did not range much beyond her experience, the newspaper said. That experience was not nearly so narrow as the journalist supposed. Alcott's hard-knocks childhood was more like David Copperfield's in a Charles Dickens novel than Joe March's in Little Women. The fictional March family poverty was genteel. The Alcott family version was grueling. Louisa's family lived on bread and water for weeks or even months at a time. They moved some 30 times before Louisa turned 25, usually leaving debts in their wake. From the age of 9, the future author's ambition was to lift her family out of poverty by all available means. She took every job a respectable woman could get. She worked as a laundress, a governess, a teacher, a nurse, a lady's companion and a seamstress. She might even have worked briefly as a professional actress. If she did, it was kept secret from her mother's wealthy relatives. Sewing became Louisa's mainstay as she tried to launch a literary career. 6 days a week she made up stories as she stitched, and on Sundays, wrote them down. One of those stories was How I Went Out to Service, a lightly fictionalized account of her personal harassment stakes huge for low-income women. Louisa was 18 when James Richardson hired her as a companion for his frail sister, he said. She would be one of the family, with light housekeeping her only chores, he said. She would live in a light-filled mansion filled with beauty and books, he said. Louisa had innocently delivered herself to be exploited and humiliated by a creepy predator. In the dilapidated pile that the house turned out to be, she would learn how little power an impoverished female had in the world. Louisa's real job, it turned out, was to be an attractive feminine presence during long fireside evenings and, it is implied, smoldering bedside nights. When chores were done, she was expected to sit at Richardson's feet in his room, the only warm, pretty one in the house, to be a passive bucket, into which he was to pour all manner of philosophic, metaphysical, and sentimental rubbish. Louisa looked longingly, not at Richardson, but at his bookshelves. Richardson escalated the pressure, slipping maudlin notes under his servant's bedroom door. When she started to avoid his room, claiming unfinished household chores, her employer asked Louisa if she actually preferred scrubbing the hearth to hearing him read Hegel. Infinitely, she replied. The first-person narrator in How I Went Out to Service says this. Her perfect comeback sounds like something Louisa wished she'd had the presence of mind to say. Richardson retaliated by recasting Louisa as a galley slave. She was assigned to the household's heaviest, men's work. She hauled water, shoveled snow, polished boots, split kindling, and sifted ashes like a true Cinderella through a cold, miserable New England winter. In her poor diet, she wouldn't have had much physical endurance to add to the mental endurance required for the job. She couldn't make it through the second month, quit, and got a measly $4 for the entire 7-week stint. In How I Went Out to Service, the narrator's insulted mother returns the money for the hardest work I ever did. The real Louisa couldn't afford the gesture, and recorded the $4 in her yearly account. When Louisa showed How I Went Out to Service to family friend James Field, editor of the new magazine The Atlantic, he told her to stick to your teaching. You can't write. Nevertheless, she persisted, adding to her sewing money by writing, anonymously, lurid pulp fiction filled with murderers, spies, hashish smokers and deceiving transvestites. More, Senate Health Bill, Don't Throw Mama from the Medicaid Train Policing the USA, a look at race, justice, media. Louisa Alcott would be 35 before her best-selling masterpiece, Little Women, tipped the income scale to where she earned more by the pen than the needle. But paying down the family debts meant writing what she called moral pap, and putting her other literary ambitions to the side. "I don't write moral tales for the young because I enjoy it," she said. "I do it because it pays well." Though her preference was for the lurid style, she branded herself as the respectable spinster, Aunt Jo, and took her secret literary life to the grave, where it went undiscovered for some 50 years. The New York Times writer can be forgiven for thinking Alcott's experience was narrow. It was what she wanted him to think. Moral pap for the young allowed her to install her family in luxury. At her death, the former household drudge presided over a Beacon Hill man staffed with 10 servants. Louisa May Alcott. A friend related that she rarely spoke of it in later years, but when she did, it was with tears in her eyes. Harriet Ryson is the author of Louisa May Alcott, the woman behind Little Women, and producer-writer of the 2009 PBS American Masters documentary biography of Alcott that airs Sunday after the conclusion of Little Women. Follow her on Twitter, @HarrietRysonRed, or share this story, https://usat.ly/2s3gsnp.